Aspirants, I know these weeks are heavy. The prelims is behind you, the mains clock is ticking, and sociology optional is where the ranking is actually decided. So let me be direct with you today. Issue 038 has two live 20 mark events, both of them right inside the 2026 examination perimeter. One is the Herat firing on women protesters in Afghanistan, which sits inside Paper 1, Religion and Society. The other is the Reuters Institute Digital News Report, released this month, which sits inside Paper 1, Social Change and Modern Society. What I want you to walk away with is not just the news. Anyone can read the news. What separates a top ranker from the rest is the ability to sync the news to the right concept and the right thinker in the correct sequence inside the word limit. That is what we will drill today. Event 1: the Herat firing on women protesters and the codification of gender apartheid, framed as religious revivalism becoming a form of governance in post 2021 Afghanistan. Now, on the syllabus, this maps very precisely. Paper 1, Unit 8, Subunit C, Religion in Modern Society, and specifically Religious Revivalism and Fundamentalism. Do not confuse this with problems of religious minorities. That is a different Paper 2 entry. Here is the concept you have to build the answer on. Religious revivalism is not the return of an older, purer moral order. That is the trap most students fall into. When you narrate revivalism as a rewind, you have already lost 7 or 8 marks. Revivalism is the production of a new institutional form. It borrows the categories of the modern nation-state, penal codes, morality ministries, surveillance registers, and reprocesses them in the vocabulary of piety. Look at what has happened in Herat in June 2026. The Taliban's Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue arrested at least 30 women for alleged dress code violations, then opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing a child. This is not medieval residue. This is a modern morality bureaucracy. That distinction, and I want you to write this down, that distinction between revivalism as return and revivalism as institutional form is the axis on which the top answer turns. Anchor Thinker 1, Ashis Nandy. The concept is the intimate enemy. Nandy's argument in his book, The Intimate Enemy, is that colonial modernity is internalized even by the very people who resist it. So when a revivalist regime rises against Western modernity, it still speaks Western modernity's grammar. It still uses codes, ministries, registers, decrees. The quotable formulation you should carry into the exam hall is this. As Ashis Nandy argued in The Intimate Enemy, the fiercest opponents of the modern West often carry its unexamined categories within them, so that a revivalist regime organizes the sacred through the same classificatory grid it claims to overthrow. Now, in your answer, once you have set up the Nandy move, apply it to Herat in one line. The Taliban Penal Code operationalized in January 2026 is precisely this modern morality bureaucracy dressed as piety. Anchor Thinker 2, Max Weber. The concept is hierocratic domination. Weber, in Economy and Society, gives us a very specific ideal type for religious authority that is administered through offices, personnel, and decrees. This is the ideal type that fits Herat perfectly. The Taliban is not running a tribal council. It is running a rationalized religious bureaucracy that has issued more than 200 decrees and in January 2026 notified a formal penal code with 3 parts, 10 chapters, and 113 articles. That is Weber's hierarchy in a live form. And Weber's larger point, remember, is that rationalization and religious rule are not opposites. They can fuse. Herat is proof of that fusion. Now I want to shift into the examiner's chair, because this is where marks are actually decided. Two scripts land on my desk. The first script is around a 14 out of 20 script. It opens with a definition of fundamentalism. It narrates Herat for a paragraph. It mentions Weber once. No work, no exact concept. It ends by saying revivalism is a challenge to modernity. Standard, unmemorable, forgettable. The second script is an 18 or 19 out of 20. It opens with a structural claim. Revivalism is not a return, it is an institutional form. It names Ashis Nandy with the intimate enemy and the book. It uses the Herat firing in one line as evidence, not as the topic. It brings in Weber's hierocratic domination with the January 2026 Penal Code as illustration. It closes by locating fundamentalism as a contemporary state form. Same event, same word limit. The difference is entirely in how the theory is deployed. That is the refrain, and I want you to say it with me. The current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. The probable question for you to write today, in the light of the June 2026 codification of religious rule in Afghanistan and the Herat protests, critically examine the proposition that religious revivalism is not a return to tradition, but a modern institutional form. 250 words, 20 marks, paper 1. Attempt it once tonight without reference and once tomorrow with your notes. Compare the two. That is how you convert this event into a scoring block. Event 2. The Reuters Institute Digital News Report of 2026 and the Displacement of the Classical Public Sphere by Platform Society. On the syllabus, this is Paper 1, Unit 10, Subunit E. Science, Technology, and Social Change. Cross-linked to Paper 1, Unit 7, on Civil Society and the Public Sphere. Now, this event is coming with a live global report and a specific calendar hook, because 30 June is also World Social Media Day. So the whole examiner framing is set up for you. Let me give you the exact figures, because at this word limit, precise numbers earn marks. The Reuters Institute Digital News Report of 2026 was released on 15th of June. Across 48 markets, 30% of respondents now say social media and video networks are their primary source of news. In 30 of those 48 markets, platforms have overtaken news websites and apps altogether. 12% of respondents now consume news only through social platforms, and that number has doubled since 2020. In Indonesia, the figure is 48%. In Germany, historically low, it has now risen to 18%. India tracks much closer to Indonesia than to Germany, because our public sphere runs largely through WhatsApp and vernacular short video. These are the numbers you carry into the hall. Anchor Thinker 1 for this event, Pierre Bourdieu. The concept is the journalistic field and the erosion of its autonomy. In his lectures published as On Television, Bourdieu argues that serious public discourse depends on the fragile autonomy of the journalistic field. When that field becomes subordinate to commercial or now algorithmic pressures, discourse itself degrades. What the Reuters report documents is exactly that collapse. The gatekeeper of legitimate news is no longer the editor. It is the platform algorithm whose grammar is engagement, not verification. The quotable formulation for your answer, as Pierre Bourdieu argued in On Television. The autonomy of the journalistic field is the fragile condition on which serious public discourse depends, and its loss to commercial and now algorithmic pressures degrades the discourse itself. Anchor Thinker 2, Jurgen Habermas. The concept is the refeudalization of the public sphere. In the structural transformation of the public sphere, Habermas warns that when the public arena is colonized by publicity and staged consensus, it stops submitting power to reasoned scrutiny. It reverts to a feudal display of authority. The 12% finding that a sizable share of people now consume news only through social platforms is the mature stage of that displacement. In your answer, use Bourdieu to explain the structural cause, and use Habermas to state the political consequence. Two thinkers, two moves, one clean chain. Back into the examiner's chair. The average script on this event, the 14 out of 20 script, will narrate the Reuters findings for 2 paragraphs, mention social media 3 times, invoke Habermas without a concept, and close by lamenting misinformation. That answer reads as a general studies note, not an optional answer. The 18 or 19 script opens with a structural claim. Symbolic authority is being restructured across a defined field. It names Bourdieu with the journalistic field, cites on television, and uses the 30 of 48 markets number in one line as evidence. It then moves to Habermas with refeudalization and cites the 12% only platform figure. It closes with an Indian corollary, WhatsApp as encrypted vernacular refeudalization. That is the answer that gets pulled from the pile and marked at the top. Again, the current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. The probable question for tonight. In the light of the Reuters Institute Digital News Report of 2026, critically examine the proposition that platform society has displaced the classical public sphere. 250 words, 20 marks, paper 1. Write it. Time yourself at 23 minutes for a 20 marker. That is the discipline you need to build now, 4 months before the paper. Let me leave you with a tight recap. 1. Religious revivalism is not a return to tradition. It is a modern institutional form. 2. On Herat, deploy Ashis Nandy's intimate enemy first, then Weber's hierocratic domination, then Foucault's biopower. 3. On the digital news event, deploy Bourdieu's journalistic field first, then Habermas on refeudalization, and use the exact numbers. 4. Remember the refrain. The current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. 5. Never name a thinker without naming the exact concept and, where possible, the work. That single habit is worth 2 full marks per answer, and across 5 answers, it is worth an entire rank bracket. You have held on this far. That itself is the hardest part, because mains preparation is long and quietly draining, and no one sees the days you show up alone. Sustaining that momentum day after day is the real secret. If today's brief was useful and you would like the full styled answer block for every event, along with the model answer, the skeleton, the flashcards, and the quotation arsenal that we prepare daily, you can either drop your email in the comments below or write to the team at team@upscdesk.com, and we will share the subscription details with you. That is all for today. Be well, and I will see you tomorrow.